For those of you on the phone, hopefully you can hear this. We're going to start in about 5 minutes.
Hello? Hello?
Hey, is that Commissioner Morrison? You are on the line.
Great. Hey, Dr. House.
This is David Lillard.
Hello?
Hey, Treasurer, you are on.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello, this is Vernon Stafford.
Hey, Vernon, you are on. Do we have Commissioner Dishner and Chairman Cope on the line?
Yes, ma'am, this is Evan.
Commissioner Dishner, are you on?
I am on. Thank
ma'am.
you.
All right, Chairman Cope, I think we're ready to begin.
Great, thanks very much, Dr. House. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Great. Let me first of all welcome everybody to our winter quarterly meeting. I want to apologize, first of all, for not being there in person. I'm in quarantine with my family right now. We've been visited by the coronavirus, so fortunately we're making some recovery here, but not safe to be out at this moment. So I'm really grateful that Vice Chairman Winton, since she's there in person, has graciously agreed to chair the meeting in my absence, and unless there's an objection, will metaphorically pass the gavel to her.
Well, good morning, everyone. This meeting is now called to order. So thank you all for being here this morning, and we hope that everyone is well. And it's great to see so many of you in person. And I want to take a moment to give a special welcome to our new Comptroller Jason Mumpower.
Thank you.
We're so super excited to have you here with us today. I know that you have plenty of boards and commissions to serve on, and we are appreciative of you being here with us today. So we will first call the roll, and because some of us are participating remotely, please recall that each vote that we take as the meeting goes on will need to be a roll call vote. So Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Cope,
Here.
Commissioner Dishner,
Here.
Commissioner Hassler, Commissioner Coben, Commissioner Moser,
Here.
Commissioner Scarlett, Commissioner Stafford,
Present and alone.
Commissioner Watson,
Here.
Commissioner Wharton,
Here.
Chairlady Winton,
Here.
Secretary Hargett,
Here.
Treasurer Lillard,
Here and alone.
Commissioner Morrison,
Here and alone.
Comptroller Mumpower.
Here.
Chairlady, you have a quorum present.
Thank you, Shauna. With no questions or objections, I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda for today's Tennessee Higher Education Commission meeting. Is there a motion?
Move.
Commissioner Wharton moves. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Scarlett. Y'all came quick with it. With no objection, we will take the roll call vote. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Cope,
Aye.
Commissioner Dishner,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassler,
Aye.
Commissioner Coben,
Aye.
Commissioner Moser,
Aye.
Commissioner Scarlett, Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Watson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton, Chair Lady Winton,
Aye.
Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard,
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower.
Aye.
Chair Lady, you have 13 ayes.
Thank you. So the next order of business is the approval of the minutes for the November 6, 2020 meeting. And with no questions or objections, I will entertain a motion to adopt the minutes for the November 6, 2020 commission meeting. Is there a motion? Thank you, Commissioner Scarlett. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Moser. Good to see you this morning. I didn't see you. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Cope,
Aye.
Commissioner Dishner,
Aye.
Commissioner Hessler,
Aye.
Commissioner Coben,
Aye.
Commissioner Moser,
Aye.
Commissioner Scarlett, Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Watson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton,
Aye.
Chair Lady Winton,
Aye.
Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard,
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower.
Aye.
Chair Lady, you have 13 ayes.
Thank you. So with no questions or objections, I will entertain a motion to adopt the minutes for the December 21st, 2020 special call commission meeting. Is there a motion? Commissioner Coben moves. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Wharton. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Cope,
Aye.
Commissioner Dishner,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassler,
Aye.
Commissioner Coben, Commissioner Moser,
Aye.
Commissioner Scarlett, Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Watson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton,
Aye.
Chair Lady Winton,
Aye.
Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard,
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower. Chair Lady, you have 13 ayes.
You? Well, I've been given the honor, when they asked me to be the second vice chair, one of the first things they said was, you'll never have to do anything. And so to begin January 2021, here we are with me starting the meeting. So thank you, Evan, and thank you to thank you to Commissioner Stafford for being at home today, so that I can be here with everyone. So it's again so great to see all of your faces here. Super excited to join you all for the first convening of our 2021 meeting. So on a more serious note, every year, roughly 250,000 students head to our 50 public institutions in pursuit of training for their career aspirations. There, across our campuses, faculty and staff present these students with new challenges to prepare them for life beyond higher education. These challenges serve to improve students' critical thinking, expand their skill sets, and embolden them to succeed in an ever-changing world. At the end of the semester, almost all of these challenges have been administered. There remains one great challenge, the final exam. 2020 was a difficult year for our state, for the reasons many of us are all familiar with by now. And I want to reiterate something that Chairman Cope has said many times before. We are super proud of how our state has risen to the occasion. We have persevered and made it through to another year, and I cannot help but to feel optimistic about the future. This new year offers us great potential, and there is light on the horizon. Tennessee continues to rebuild from the tornadoes of just 10 months ago. Vaccines promise relief from the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, and our institutions have navigated this tumultuous time with truly admirable flexibility and dedication to students. As we enter to this new year, having overcome many of the challenges that were thrown our way, I would argue then there remains one great challenge for this commission, our institutions, and our state: the final exam. There is one simple question posed by the final exam, and that is, what did you learn? Our moment of retrospection will soon be here. And I task each of us on this commission, those in this room or watching remotely, and anyone who has a hand in our higher education system to take this question seriously. What did we learn? What has this past year taught us? What lessons can we take from it? And how can we use what we've learned to improve the student experience and future of higher education? Our students, families, and institutions have been tested this year. They have demonstrated tenacity, remaining enrolled and engaged. Despite the circumstances, we owe it to our students to not let this experience pass by without consideration for what has been exposed and how we must continue to evolve and support all Tennesseans in their pursuit of higher education. To bring their voice to light, THEC gathered student feedback on their experience over the past year in a recent survey, which we will hear more about later in this meeting. We will also hear from 2 of our institutions on proposed academic programs and determine the selection process for a new executive director while brainstorming on how to honor the last. So a very packed agenda for today. The work of this commission continues to move forward, and we will rely on our past experiences to guide our future decisions. So again, I ask, what has this year taught us? What did we learn? The answer to this question will help us understand how we made it here today and how we prepare for the test of tomorrow. It is my sincere hope that you will each take the time to consider it. Next is a report from the THEC Interim Executive Director, Dr. Emily House. Dr. House, you are recognized.
Madam Chair, members, good morning, everyone. Staff members behind me, you can look at my back while I speak. Sorry for that. Good morning. I'm so happy to be here. I'm happy to be here in this capacity, and this is really such a privilege to deliver my first Executive Director's Report at the start of the new year. What I would like to talk about today really focuses on the 120-day plan that I provided to members prior to the holiday following the December 21st meeting. So I want to touch on everything that's happening internally, much of what's happening in the larger ecosystem, but first and foremost, I want to thank the staff, many of whom are behind me, who have been so wonderful and supportive and affirming over the past 6 weeks since I assumed this role. So thank you to all of you who are here and all of you who may be watching. Also, quick point of privilege, Commissioner Watson had a big birthday yesterday. He turned 30. Happy birthday to you, Frank. Happy birthday, sir. Thank you for sharing your birthday week with us. You don't look a day over 29. All right. What I'd like to start with is the continued discussion of the COVID-19 response. THEC has played a pretty unique role with regard to the overarching state response to COVID, as well as much more specifically the institutional responses to COVID. I think Mitch Curry is behind me. He gets an honorary Master's of Public Health for all of the work that he has done in this space. What we did in the fall was visit each campus to really do a debrief, do a deep dive and an after-action review as to what went well and what was a challenge in terms of the madness that was fall 2020 as it relates to COVID response. We learned so much, and maybe next time I'll ask Mitch to join me up here. I won't put you on the spot to do so now, no. But we really got some deep, robust information from those campuses about how they handled housing, how they handled food, how they handled quarantine. So really continuing to keep our finger on the pulse of how we at the state level, we at THEC, can be supportive of the campuses who are really doing the work to work with students who are healthy and who are ill such that they can go on with their higher ed experiences. I think something that has been a silver lining of this whole crisis, and you'll hear me say this throughout these remarks, is the collaboration and the opportunities for collaboration that have happened between different state agencies. I think something that's very unique about THEC is the spot that we sit in. We are a state agency, but we work just as closely with systems of higher education, institutions of higher education. I think this crisis really led THEC in a wonderful way to lean into our status and our role as a state agency. So I say that to say we've worked very closely with TEMA, we've worked very closely with the Department of Health, plans for testing, plans for vaccine, and all the things there between. So we really have worked very closely with those two entities as well as the Unified Command Group and Governor Lee's team in order to make sure everybody has plans in place. Something that we've been able to do more internally on the TSAC side is make sure that going to college in light of COVID is as easy as possible for students in the ways that THEC and TSAC can control. So what we've been able to do is, through the authority granted to the executive director from the General Assembly, think about policies, think about rules that relate to financial aid and how we can modify those rules as needed in the time of COVID in order to make sure students can access as much aid as possible. Most of those changes have related to Tennessee Promise, changing the community service deadlines, the FAFSA filing deadlines, and all of that. The objective being, we need students to continue their education plans and not let COVID derail them. You'll hear a little bit later from Dr. Kamer about the student survey that was administered to students, and I think he will speak to that a little bit, about students' plans and how they were and were not affected by the public health crisis. Another point in the plan that I presented to members in late December was engagement with the General Assembly. Lou Hanneman is behind me. He is our Director of Legislative Affairs. He and I have been making the circuit over at Cordell Hall already. We've yet to run into Dawson, but I'm sure we will. We have had about 12, 13, 14 meetings so far with members. We have met with House and Senate leadership as well as Education Committee members. All of these meetings have been positive. We've been talking about what session's going to look like in 2020. We've talked about budget priorities. And really what we have heard from these members is a desire for continuity, a desire that THEC and higher ed just keep the train going forward and continue with the progress that we've made over the past 10 years. And I committed to them and I commit to the board that as long as I am in that role, that will be the case, that we will continue to push and continue to work very hard for our institutions and for our state and for our students in the state, and there will be no break in service, as it were. So wonderfully positive meetings with the General Assembly members thus far, made even more so by the publication of this next round of county profiles. So members of the research team are behind me. This is always an item that is very, very useful across the board, but particularly when we're talking to legislators about what higher education looks like in their district. So thank you to Stephen and Jacob who are behind me, Amanda and Russell who are watching via WebEx for all the work they did to put these together. These have really led to very rich discussions and rich conversations with members. And I chose Davidson County for Commissioner Coben and Commissioner Scarlett. I'm happy to provide this information for anybody who would like to see it for their own county. Also available online. With regard to internal operations, something I have done over the past 3 weeks since the new year is met with every THEC and TSAC staff member. I did bureau by bureau WebEx calls as well as division by division check-in calls just to say hello, to check in with everybody, to get my finger on the pulse, make sure my finger was on the pulse of all upcoming projects, and to follow up on the discussion we had in the fall as it relates to working from home. I know Mike spoke about this in November during his report, but working from home for THEC has been very, very positive. For some people that may be surprising, for some that may not be surprising, but it's been a very positive experience for our staff. And once we are past COVID, whatever that means, we will think about what the working posture needs to look like moving forward. So I'm sure there'll be much more discussion of that, but those check-ins were positive, wonderful, and as I said at the outset, I appreciate the support of the entire team over these past few weeks. At a more HR level, we do have a number of vacancies, we do have some new hires to make, and I don't want anybody on the staff to see that last bullet and freak out. Please don't freak out, but thinking about any kind of structural changes or any kind of reorganization that needs to happen in light of vacancies and new hires. I want to talk about two quick program updates, the first being the Reconnect to Workforce work that is being led by our adult learner team. I spoke about this briefly in November, but just to give an update, how this program works is when a Tennessean applies for unemployment insurance or claims unemployment, they are now able to apply for Reconnect very seamlessly. This was not the case in November when I spoke about this the first time. It was sort of a clunky data matching kind of process, trying to match those who have claimed unemployment with those who have applied to Reconnect. Thanks to the work of our colleagues at Labor and our colleagues here, all of the team here at THEC, we've been able to streamline that process and it's much less clunky. So between October and today, we've had about 1,000 applicants. Only 10% of those students, those adults, however, are working with a navigator. And that's a little bit lower than the typical Reconnect navigator take-up. Those services are optional. They're available to adults, but they are not mandatory the way like a Tennessee Promise mentor meeting is mandatory. So we've been doing some brainstorming internally as well as with our colleagues at Labor about how to improve that take-up. Is this like an outreach issue? Is it an advertising issue? How can we continue to improve the take-up of the navigation services? Because those adults who engage with a navigator have much, much, much greater levels of success than those who do not, just across the board. To the point that I will keep coming back to about collaboration, this has been a wonderful example brought on by the pandemic, which is not wonderful, but a wonderful example of collaboration with the Department of Labor in a way that we have not collaborated with them in the past. A very tactical, tangible, action-oriented collaboration with Denise and her team at Labor. Another program I want to speak about just briefly, and we'll hear more about this at our next meeting in May, is the Black Male Success Initiative. Daryl Freeman is behind me. He's joined us today. He has really been one of the important thought partners in this work. And this has really resulted, this conversation has resulted from a deep dive into the data about attainment and graduation rates by many student subgroups, by many demographic groups. And what really stands out to all of us across all sectors, across all institutions, is the success rate of Black males in higher education in Tennessee. Their graduation rate across the board is 15 to 20 percentage points lower than non-Black males. And pick an institution and those numbers don't look too different. So what we are doing, and this work will be led by Dr. Julie Roberts behind me, is really building on the best practices that campuses are already employing, what we learned from the TIE grant, which you've all heard about in the past, the Talent, Innovation, and Equity grant that was funded by Lumina. That grant is now over, but there were 5 campuses who really intervened with students who are students of color, students who are low income on their campuses, in order to boost their success. So we do have some best practices, and I want to commend Daryl, who's behind me, for his help and his partnership on this. So much more to come as this year goes on, but wanted to mention that to all of you today. Finally, as we think about the next 6 months, 12 months, I think something that's really important to keep top of mind are these best practices that we're learning from COVID. I keep talking about the collaboration between state agencies, but there are also best practices and things that can be changed and have been changed at the campus level, at the system level, to ensure that everything is as student-centered as possible and that these processes and these protocols really keep students at the center. We convened, Dr. Gentile and I convened in October the Future of Higher Ed Working Group to start this conversation. We will do so again to really learn what did you change because of COVID and what do you perhaps not need to change back at the campus level. And that touches on that second bullet there as well. Continued focus on educational attainment. COVID is not going to derail our progress toward attainment. I don't think anybody will allow it to. We are all committed to pushing harder and harder to make sure students are getting to college, through college, and into the workforce. And in that spirit, continuing to focus on workforce alignment, partnering with labor, partnering with ECD. Some of our reporting has now been much better aligned with these agencies, as well as the programmatic collaborations around GIVE and Spark. And again, Mitch and Brandon Hudson are behind me, and they really lead this work. That remains at the forefront of much of what we're going to do this year. To the point about the attainment goal, to the point about meeting students where they are and helping them to get to and through, a continued focus on equity. When we have talked about equity in the past, and when we talk about equity in the master plan, it's often centered around race, but I don't just mean racial equity when I say equity. We have learned a lot about geographic inequities over the past year, which kind of puts a sharper point on what we know about geographic inequities anyway, as it relates to broadband, access to internet, access to supplies. So thinking about geographic equity as well as racial and socioeconomic equity as we think about our progress toward an attainment goal. The perpetual question over the past 9 years now has been, if we hit our state's attainment goal, but it's really just the 4 metro areas that push the state to that percentage attainment, have we done what we've committed to do? And I would argue the answer is no. So we need to think very equitably about how we at THEC and how higher education as an enterprise can really push toward more equitable attainment. Finally, it would not be a board meeting without me talking about the master plan, continuing to adopt and adapt the master plan with these best practices and with these lessons learned from COVID. So more to come on that, more tactical, tangible strategies related to these best practices that we've learned how do we implement that into our master plan to continue to execute on that master plan? So pending any questions, that concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to take any questions. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members.
Well, thank you, Dr. House. That was a super informative report, as evidenced by the no questions. So if you are following the agenda, then you know we are going to the consent calendar, which resides our first action item of the day. There are 2 items on the consent calendar, and without objection, we will vote on them as a set. The first part is the post-secondary education authorization, and the second is the 2020-2021 revised operating budgets. And if there are no questions or objections, I will obtain a motion to approve the consent calendar. Thank you, Secretary Hargett. Is there a second?
Second by David Lillard.
Second by Treasurer Lillard. Are there any other questions? Without objection, we will take the roll call vote. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Cope,
Aye.
Commissioner Dishner,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassler,
Aye.
Commissioner Coben,
Aye.
Commissioner Moser, Commissioner Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Watson, Commissioner Wharton,
Aye.
Chair Lady Winton,
Aye.
Secretary Hargett,
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard,
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower.
Aye.
Chair Lady of 13 ayes.
Thank you. So let's move to the regular calendar. Our first item is the DPSA State Authorization Reciprocity Agreement, or SARA rules, and these will be presented by Julie Woodruff. Julie, you are recognized.
Good morning, Chair Lady Winton,
morning.
Commissioners, and Executive Director House. I'm here today for the SARA rules. Just to remind you, on November 6th, the Commission voted to adopt some proposed rules and to file a notice of rulemaking hearing. The rules address the review process for institutions denied either initial or renewal authorization under SARA, or who were being considered for or deemed to have provisional authorized status. The notice was filed with the Secretary of State on November 12th, and the rulemaking hearing was held as noticed on January 5th, 2021. The only comment that was received during the rulemaking hearing was from the University of Memphis, and that comment simply expressed appreciation for the investment that Tennessee has made in NC-SARA. Members of the public were provided an opportunity to file written comments until January 8th, 2021. THEC did not receive any written comments. In your materials for this meeting are the rules we recommend for your approval. Rules are no different than those you considered at the November 6th meeting. As such, we ask that you adopt the final rules as written in the materials for this regular calendar agenda. Item 1, for the purposes of submitting the rulemaking hearing rules filing form to the Attorney General for review, and direct the Executive Director to make any non-substantive changes to the rules required by the Attorney General before submitting the form to the Tennessee Secretary of State.
Okay. Are there any questions for Julie? Okay, with no objection, we will take a roll call vote. Madam Secretary, please call the roll. Oh, I guess we need to have a motion. Mayor Wharton? Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you by Commissioner Moser. Now, with no objection, we will take a roll call vote. Thank you, Shauna.
Commissioner Cope,
Aye.
Commissioner Dishner,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassler,
Aye.
Commissioner Coben,
Aye.
Commissioner Moser,
Aye.
Commissioner Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Watson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton, Chair Lady Winton,
Aye.
Secretary Hargett,
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard,
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower.
Aye.
Chair Lady, you have 13 ayes.
Thank you. The motion carries. So for my favorite part of any of our THEC meetings, we are coming up on our new academic programs. Today, we have 2 new academic programs for the commission to consider. The first is from MTSU and the second is from Austin P. First up is MTSU Provost Dr. Mark Burns to present the Physician Assistant Studies Master of Science degree. Dr. Burns, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Dr. House, Commissioners. We're really excited to be here today to talk about a program that has literally been a decade in the making. That's how long we've been thinking about what would be the most appropriate professional health science degree to go with our very successful nursing program. So we're really happy to be here. I've got with me Dr. Peter Cunningham, who is semi-retired now, but was my Vice Provost for Academic Programs, and Dr. Marie Patterson, who will be, if you approve, the Director of this program. They're the ones who've done the heavy lifting. Very big undertaking. So our degree is an MS in Physician Assistant Studies. It's a program that consists of 27 months. So a student who gets a bachelor's degree and is admitted to the program in a little bit more than 2 years can be qualified to be. Of those 27 months, which run consecutively, there's no lengthy breaks. 15 months are classroom work or didactic instruction, and 12 months are clinicals. And you'll see in your information the details on what those months look like, but there are 4 different clinical rotations that our students go through. We think it's sort of a no-brainer how this program aligns with the state's master plan, with our institutional mission. There are reams of data in your information that will talk about the market need for physician assistants. Bureau of Labor Statistics reports there'll be 40,000 new jobs for physician assistants over the next 5 years, that the job growth potential in this field is much greater than average. Tennessee ranks as the 6th best market in the nation for physician assistants. And obviously the Nashville metro area is a healthcare center, and we think that there'll be tons of employment opportunities. And here's the exciting thing, or one of the many exciting things about this program: a graduate will walk into a job that it will very likely pay in the 6 figures. Not many of our degrees can we say you're almost guaranteed to go into a job $1,000. So I think it's great for society, it's great for the healthcare industry, and it's great for our students. Have such a well-defined and well-compensated career path. I talked a little bit already about the need for the program. You'll see, again, U.S. News and World Report constantly rates physician assistant as one of the best jobs, a job that will lead to a pretty solid middle-class life. We have a healthy pipeline of potential students. Right now, we've got about 1,100 students who are in some form of preparation for a healthcare profession. So that's a big pool of students who are interested in doing something in healthcare. In addition, we think we're going to attract some other students, high-performing students who recognize this as a really attractive career option. There's only one other public program, PA program in the state, which is at UT Health Center. A lot of pent-up demand for a public program in middle. Starting out, and will for the first 5 years at least have a annual class of 30 students. So you'll see our projections. We do think, as in any program, there'll be some level of attrition, but by and large, the number of applications will vastly, if other schools and experiences any indication, will vastly outstrip the number of spots that we have. So we really don't think there'll be any problem whatsoever in filling up our classes. There you'll see the program cost and revenue projections. We are incurring some upfront costs. undoubtedly. We have 3.2 full-time positions already on board. One thing about the physician assistance program is that the accrediting body is incredibly rigorous, which all agree is a good thing. We want these people to be well trained. So Dr. Patterson, Dr. Cunningham have done a great job of preparing us. We're already in the midst of the accreditation process, and obviously, if you approve this today, we'll continue to the provisional accreditation with a goal toward bringing our first class in May of 2022. So it's been a pretty lengthy process to get ready, and will continue to be something of a process before we have our first class. But again, it's a highly regulated field. Careful to follow all of the rules. In terms of my presentation, be glad to answer any questions or have any discussion that you might have.
Colvin, you recognize.
Top 15 in the nation. It may even be higher than that.
Very highly ranked, yes, ma'am.
And so I'm is this not very good? And so I'm very pleased that you're doing this. I think it's a great program. I just want to ask you a practical question. If I have a nursing degree, why would I spend 27 months getting a physician assistant's master's instead of 12 months getting a nurse practitioner degree? I have heard that physicians like the PA better because it is more tied to the physician and her or his orders. But weighing the two degrees, why would I go this option?
I'm going to be on thin ice here, and we might want to, with your permission, Madam Chair, invite Dr. Patterson to come up and talk about that in a little more detail. They're different career paths, though, different expectations, and probably different compensation. But
Dr. Patterson, you
okay?
recognize.
Yeah. Marie, will you come up?
For having us. I will say we do sometimes have nursing majors that choose to go the PA route, but this is a career path that's open to anyone. So a lot of times it's the basic science majors that come in, athletic training majors, nutrition, those types of things. So it's really open to really anyone, but a lot of people that choose healthcare in general. So it's not that our target audience is just on nursing. Not uncommon to have nursing majors that do choose to go the PA route, but definitely it's a more broad perspective than that. So there's a lot of students that choose to go that route who are not traditional nursing majors. That's the great thing about the profession. It's we don't have to specialize, and so you get to choose your own path. But yes, it will be open.
So if I had an MTSU Bachelor of Science in Nursing and I decided to go to this program, how many hours would it take me to do that?
So you would need to fulfill the prerequisites. So as long as you have an undergraduate degree and you do the prerequisites, which a lot of those would be built into the nursing curriculum.
I was assuming. Okay.
Right. So then anyone can. You can have a degree as long as it's an undergraduate degree, and then you meet the prerequisites and the other standards. And yes.
Thank you.
Secretary Hargett.
Well, if I can follow up on that, because maybe I misunderstood the answer, but it seems to me and I will put words in her mouth, Commissioner was asking essentially because these nursing students would have already have gotten some of the classes that other students who did not come from that focus would not have had yet. So they're going to spend their 27 months getting some of that the nursing students have already received. So is there a way to cut out on some of the classes that somebody who had a BSN, would they be able to forego some of the hours in the program?
There is no advanced placement option, but when you come in with an undergraduate degree, keep in mind that's undergraduate level medical training. So all of these classes are master's level. So while a lot of ours will be duplicated classes, so take for instance somebody that's a biology major, they've taken anatomy already. You still have to take it again at the graduate level because it is more rigorous, it's more intense. You're talking about clinicians going out there making diagnosis, treating patients. We read EKGs. Want them to be prepared. So it's more building on top of your baseline knowledge. So it's really, we don't look at it as a, either or. It's like you keep building each.
So there's not a redundancy there, is what you're saying?
No, there's
Okay.
not a redundancy there.
Watson.
In looking at the curriculum, one thing that's missing and it may be embedded is training with respect to medical technology and new diagnostic breakthroughs.
So part of that is that diagnostics class. I think it's 1, 2, and 3. And so if you're talking about like new radiology, that kind of thing, that there is a class that addresses that. And we're required, as he mentioned before, our accrediting body is very rigorous and very strict on what has to be taught at every PA program. And so they come and they say, we have to have a huge mapping tool. Where are you teaching this? And where that's being taught. So they have a lot of broad and robust standards that are required, and you will not get accredited if you do not have that built into your curriculum.
Additional questions? If not, thank you.
Move approval. Second.
All right, Secretary Hargett moves approval. Commissioner Wharton seconds. Any additional questions, comments? If not, Secretary, call the roll.
Commissioner Cope,
Aye.
Commissioner Dishner,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassler,
Aye.
Commissioner Coben,
Aye.
Commissioner Moser, Commissioner Scarlett, Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Watson, Commissioner Wharton, Chair Lady Winton,
Aye.
Secretary Hargett,
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard,
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower. Chair Lady, you have 13 ayes.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. Next up is Austin P., Criminal Justice Master of Science degree, and that will be presented by Austin P.'s Provost, Dr. Maria Conley. Dr. Conley, you are recognized.
Morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I appreciate getting to see everyone face to face. Many for the first time. This is my first commissioners meeting where I'm able to be here in person, so it's a pleasure to be here. I'd also like to introduce my colleague Scott Colhane, professor and chair of the Department of Criminal Justice. He is here today, and if I get in the weeds, I will ask him to lend expertise. So thank you again, Madam Chairwoman and members of the Commission. We're excited to present today our Master of Science in Criminal Justice proposal. So in looking at the academic program and the design, this program really provides curriculum that emphasizes the core criminal justice institutions such as law enforcement, the courts, corrections, as well as advanced study of homeland security. The program's coursework focuses on research methodology, as well as understanding theoretical underpinnings of criminology, ethics and social issues, and complex challenges today facing the criminal justice system and national defense. The program does feature a homeland security concentration, but students can actually complete the master's degree without that concentration if they so choose to. The concentration emphasizes the application of theoretical perspectives to domestic and international terrorism, homeland security law, relevant criminal justice issues, and all students can enroll in these, whether they're in the concentration or not. Graduates of this program are well positioned for careers in criminal justice, homeland security, and of course for advancement in military careers. As many of you know, APSU's military-related enrollment consistently hovers around 25%. And it may not be surprising that in this population, criminal justice is one of the highest enrolled undergraduate majors. And then, so therefore, we feel this graduate program would be particularly desirable to our military student population. In looking at some of the unique features of the program, first, it's the only program in Tennessee offering a graduate credential that includes Homeland Security as an optional concentration. The program allows students to select coursework based on their educational goals. So there are 9 credit hours or 3 courses in the core curriculum that all students take. And then students that choose the Homeland Security concentration would take 3 additional required courses to satisfy those requirements. And then the remaining coursework would consist of elective courses designed to really be tailored to the student's educational plan and their career aspirations. So the required amount of electives would vary based on if you choose the Homeland Security concentration or not, ranging from 12 credit hours for those students up to 21 credit hours for students opting out of the concentration. Also, making it unique, it is 100% online program delivery. This provides additional flexibility, especially for our active duty military members, as well as military-affiliated students who may be subject to frequent moves. The department offering the degree has a very established history in delivering online modalities. And the degree also will be delivered in our flexible 7.5-week process and modality. This modality was actually favored when we did discussions and focus groups with potential students. This is a 30 credit hour program, and again, it utilizes that 7.5-week spacing in terms of modality with a rolling admission structure. Therefore, this allows the potential to actually complete the degree in 1 calendar year. So all of the terms in a summer. So while students can still receive all of the core content that is typical in the other programs that are offered in the state. In looking at how it aligns to the state master plan and our mission, APSU's criminal justice MS will support 3 areas of distinction, training professionals really to meet the workforce needs in the state of Tennessee and the region. In the following ways: professions critical to the state and region by producing a highly skilled workforce in law enforcement, criminal justice, and homeland security. It allows these individuals, especially who are already working in the field, to credential up and to take on more supervisory and advanced roles. It offers critical areas of science and technology by keeping abreast with latest development in disaster planning and homeland security readiness, which I think is crucial in the state of Tennessee. And of course, community well-being by engaging in research that promotes community welfare and community safety. It supports our mission to develop programs that address regional needs and provide collaborative opportunity for us to connect to the community. So leading through community is one of our 5 core principles in our strategic plan. And of course, it also will support strategic goals related to enrollment, growth, and student success and workforce preparedness. In terms of, we think the program will be unique in the state in many ways and does fulfill a need. So as noted by market and labor force research that we have done, graduate programs that offer an option in national security and or homeland security are relatively scarce and provide APSU with an opportunity to address an important gap in educational offerings in this area in the region. Criminal justice is actually also our largest undergraduate enrolled program that does not have a pipeline at Austin Peay to a graduate program in the same discipline. We have 400 students typically enrolled as undergraduate majors, and we graduate over 100 students a year. And so we feel that this will be a very strong pipeline into the program. In addition, surveys that we did showed that 80% of students in our undergraduate criminal justice program were interested in having this master's degree path. Turning now to looking at overall enrollment and graduation projections and costs and revenues, we anticipate initial enrollment of 20 students per year, growing to a continual enrollment of 50 to 60 in the 5th and 6th year, with an estimated annual attrition of 20%. Our enrollment and tuition estimates are based on an assumption that half of the students will actually pursue this 1-year path, with the other half of the students pursuing a more traditional 2-year path toward graduation. By year 6, we should reach a steady state of 50 to 60 students annually enrolled, graduating about 20 students a year. We're, and while if you look at these numbers, we think they're realistic, but we actually think they're extremely conservative. We are optimistic that we'll exceed these numbers because we've taken a very conservative approach to our attrition rate. Looking at tuition and expenditures, you can see the annual tuition buildup over time. And expected costs of the program are primarily associated with the investment in faculty. So the plan is to add 3 tenure track faculty over the course of the first 3 years of the program to support that, with the first faculty member starting in the fall of 2021. And that person's already been secured. So in addition to serve as a recruiting tool and in support of the faculty and research, we'll also employ graduate teaching assistants, and this is built into expenditures of the program also. We don't expect to need institutional reallocations by the 4th year of the program. So that's pretty much what I have to present, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions? Mayor Wharton.
Good morning.
Morning.
There was a reference to social issues that will be
Sure, absolutely, and that's a really excellent question. In a bit in the weeds for me, so I am actually going to, with permission of the chair, to ask Dr. Colhane to join me at the podium. I will say that the curriculum does include, of course, instruction in ethics, and it does address social issues and looking at those, but I'm going to allow him to elaborate more on details.
Okay, Dr. Colhane, you're recognized.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I always appreciate an opportunity to wear a suit and tie because I never do when I teach. The answer to your question is that is actually a topic that is hit in the very first class. I myself have taught that class. It's the issues in criminal. Obviously, it's something that covers all 3 of the main areas: policing, corrections. But as somebody who's taught that class, that is immediately addressed. And we've done extensive work, thanks to our program, or our external review, in which we examined almost every class for issues of ethics and ethical behavior. Very strongly, the policing course. It's at the forefront. It obviously is a huge change for the criminal justice. Absolutely, and that is not only expressed in the law enforcement side, particularly in that class, but in the courts and corrections with the pipeline issues, with the differences in treatment in the court proceedings for those who haven't. All of those issues are handled almost immediately and
of what the average officer
individuals are going to have to go much deeper than the police academy. The papers that they're going to be issued, the research that they're going to have to go into is at a far greater than even, so for example, when we have a student come or an officer wants to come to Austin P, the department issues certain credit to those officers for their training, the training that you speak of. That level of credit that we offer is at the 1,000 level, basically. Lower division elective hours. But we're talking about giving these 5,000 levels. So we're going to have the expectations of what they're going to be asked to do is very far above what the police academy. Writing very structured papers, writing very structured current event topic papers on the issues that you speak of.
Commissioner Coben had the next question. Can you make sure that you speak into the mic? I think the people on the phone may be having a little difficulty hearing us, so let's make sure we get that addressed. Thanks, everybody.
Either one of you can answer this question, I'm sure. I wondered if you could explain to us the 7-week model. You said it's rolling admission. I take it the courses are offered in a 7-week period of time as opposed to a semester or half.
So it's a 7.5 week, and it's divided up 2 sections per semester. So this is in part in our relationship with Fort Campbell and the Army. Yes, so they run on a different schedule. And so what we have done is, in criminal justice, is we overlap our classes with Fort Campbell. So all of our and when I came in, it wasn't like this, but I changed it to this model. So we now offer all of our classes on campus that are online, 95% of them online. And we then merge them with the soldiers and the offerings at Fort Campbell. And so that model, that 7.5 week model, is 2 sections per semester. So as they are rolling in admissions, we have this happen all the time with soldiers. They start 8 weeks into this fall semester because they couldn't take classes or they were deployed. And so that's where the model comes from, is the Fort Campbell relationship that we have.
One more question, if I may. I think you mentioned that there are very few programs of this nature that focus on Homeland Security in the country. Could you tell us where some of those other schools are?
A lot of them, of course, are in the D.C. area.
Okay.
They're natural transitions, but our program, this is pre when I arrived, but the criminal justice program itself was born out of Homeland Security. We have a lengthy, decades-long history of offering Homeland Security as a component. We have multiple professors who are experts and publish research in Homeland Security. So that's what makes us unique at Austin Peay compared to relatively to the rest of them. And most of the undergraduate students do stay in the Homeland Security concentration that we also offer at the undergraduate level. We have a minor in it as well.
Additional questions? Well, I have one question, and that's really in regards to cybersecurity and how it's evolving. I mean, it's constantly evolving. So how does this course keep up with all of those evolving changes? And then secondarily, because it's tied to those soldiers and their schedules and the things that they have to do, how do they try to, look into the fields where they can gain some actual work experience during this time period, because they're doing so many things at once?
Absolutely. So I will speak to the first one, then I'll let Provost Cronley speak to the APSU's relationship and the administration we have at Fort Campbell as well. So the first issue on cybersecurity, we do offer an undergraduate class specifically tailored to cybersecurity. We have multiple professors who go to the annual conferences, virtually of course these days, but that go to the annual conferences on cybersecurity, and those classes are ever evolving as cybersecurity is. We do not have a specific course lined up, but what the flexibility that we've instituted is a topics class that will allow for a cybersecurity coverage should the demand meet it. And my personal philosophy as chair is when demand repeatedly shows a topics to be of interest, we add it to the curriculum. And so we're open to adding new courses as well, usually through that process. But I will let Provost Cronley speak to the other.
And I wanted to, before I answer that, wanted to make one more comment about our flexible 7.5 week term. That's actually a term that we offer a lot of curriculum, both traditionally in a regular semester and in what I like to call kind of sprint terms, right? These 7.5 week terms across the whole university. So that's actually, it's not special to criminal justice. It's actually, we offer courses in a wide variety of study in those terms. So that's something we're kind of used to doing. To answer your question about how we support military students in career exploration and workforce placement and things like that. So in a couple different ways. Actually, as most of you know, we have a facility that is actually on Fort Campbell, on the base. We have full-time staff there that have full-time advisors that are there all of the time to deal with and work with our active military and military affiliated students. And so they can, the soldiers throughout their course of study can access that resource. In backup to that and in support of that, the university, of course, has a career services area and many of those resources can be accessed online. Students can work through our traditional career services office to help them find potential employment. And we know that that is a large number of soldiers. The fort actually honorably discharges about 400, I think it's 400 soldiers a month, a week, a month. It's in my notes. I think it's a month. And actually many of those stay in the area and try to return into the civilian workforce. And so the third thing that we have just opened is our Military Student Support Center on main campus. This is actually to support active military and military affiliated students. And this is a new center that we've opened on our campus. And this isn't just open to our students. This is actually open to any of the people that are military or military affiliated who are pursuing educational outcomes. And so we support and advise those students, not only if they're our students, but any students. So if those students happen to be going to another institution, Nashville State, wherever, or they're thinking about pursuing a degree, they can come and we'll try to support them in any way we can to support them, connect them to resources, etc. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. Any additional questions?
I move approval.
Thank you. Mayor Warden moves approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Watson. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Commissioner Cope,
Aye.
Commissioner Dishner,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassler,
Aye.
Commissioner Coben,
Aye.
Commissioner Moser,
Aye.
Commissioner Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Watson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton,
Aye.
Chair Lady Winton,
Aye.
Secretary Hargett,
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard,
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower.
Aye.
Chair Lady, you have 13 ayes.
Thank you. The motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, to the next step in our meeting is a discussion in regards to the executive director process. And so I'd first ask Shauna Jennings to read into the record the statutory authority granted to the commission to select an executive director. Shauna, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tennessee Code Annotated 497205 reads as follows. The Commission is empowered to employ an executive director, define the executive director's duties, and, within budgetary limitations, fix the executive director's compensation. The executive director shall serve at the pleasure of the Commission. The executive director shall have the educational preparation and experience that qualifies the executive director, in the Commission's judgment, to understand and evaluate the problems and needs of the state's institutions of higher learning and to direct the studies of the Commission. Within budgetary limitations and subject to the approval of the Commissioner of Human Resources, the Executive Director may employ other professional and staff employees necessary to efficiently discharge the duties of the agency. The Executive Director and all other employees shall be reimbursed for travel expenses in accordance with the comprehensive travel regulations promulgated by the Department of Finance and Administration and approved by the Attorney General and Recorder.
Thank you, Shauna. What you have in front of you and what has been added to the meeting materials are some options through which the Commission can select a permanent executive director. These options touch on both process and timeline. So thank you, Commissioner Scarlett, and to other Commission members who have shared your ideas related to this process. The floor is now open for discussion and for any questions for Shauna, or if anyone has any questions for Dr. House. Yes.
Share some about the process that we went through?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Please do.
So I have to first give props to the THEC team, Scott Sloan, Shauna Jennings, David Heathcock, Lou Hanneman, and Jason Cavender were integral in a lot of these conversations that we had in regards to what would be the best way to go about this search. And I have to tell you, we've got an amazing interim person sitting with us today. It was a bit of a hard conversation, but it was a good conversation. Our role as a commission, one of the number one things that we can do is make sure we've got the right leader in role. because that person is going to do the day-to-day work that we preside over from a governance standpoint. It's one of the number one things I think that we can do as an organization or as a commission. Though we have an interim person in role, I believe, and I shared this with you all last time, I'm not a fan of long-term interim positions. I think it's unfortunate for the culture inside of any organization, regardless of any type of organization. So time frame was something that was brought up in our last meeting, and it's something that we consistently talked about. Specifically, Scott and David and Shauna talked a lot about time frame. And the challenge we've run across here is that we don't have a succession plan specifically laid out by the commission. It would be different if we had known that a retirement or an exit was going to happen and we would have previously identified someone inside the organization to take on this role, but that's not what had happened. Pluses and minuses here. I'm the newbie on the team, right? And so it allows me to have a kind of a different level of perspective, because I think there's a lot of belief that Dr. House is the right person to sit into this role. And that's one of one or two of different options that we have here, is to position her in a place where there would be a period of time of review and expectation by the commission to be able to then put her in role. There's an option to do immediate hire, and there's also a couple of other options. And I want to share some of these with you. Number one is, kind of backing up, we don't have an executive director profile. And there's again, I don't know which direction conversationally this team has decided to go down. Do we want to go down? We are number one in the nation. Just be clear, you all have done a phenomenal job. So has this commission, number one in the nation. And so we can continue going down the path that we're on right now, and we could consider, hey, we're number one, let's keep on rolling down this pathway. We could also look at what's happening in the industry. Business is changing. Business is thinking differently about the people that we need to have in our employment. Financial burdens for students continue to increase. Financial burdens at a local and a federal level continue to increase. The expectations of students are changing. The beliefs of students are changing. And I think some of our post-secondary institutions are beginning to think a little bit differently as well. And so we can go down a pathway of status quo of where we are today. We can go down a pathway of really thinking about, from an innovation standpoint, where do we want to go. The challenge that I had in some of these conversations is I don't know what direction this commission wants to go. I think it would have been a little bit different if there had been a broader mission and vision laid out for this and to create a profile. So that was a bit of a challenge, sharing that with you for transparency. I think that's an important piece, that regardless of which pathway we go down, we need to establish what is the profile we're looking for to fill this role. Recognizing we've only had a couple of executive directors over the past few decades, I think it really is important for us to determine what that path is. There's a lot of research that went into this. As I understand it, Stephen Gentile, Scott Sloan, and Shauna Jennings, and David Heathcock went through a series of just trying to understand what are the, of all the SHIOs across the nation, what were their processes? How did they go about the searches? Another piece that we went through is our most recent education executive director commission role that was hired, was the Charter Commission. And so I spent some time with the person that was in charge of that, just to understand what was the process they went through, since we have never established one at THEC. And so we learned a lot through all of this. And what came out of it is several different options, right? You have the option of, as I stated earlier, being able to have an interim period and then provide full-time placement, assuming everything goes well. An external search committee with one of the commission members as part of that. And then another one is posting a position. My pushback on posting a position is that we would post it in the typical places where SHIOs at a middle management level would be searching. I would say we're looking for an executive director. I would say we're looking for a C-level director. And I'm going to guess that most of the C-level directors in other SHIOs or in other institutions, whether inside of higher education or not, are probably not going around looking at the postings. I could be very wrong, but just a guess. Our previous director did not come from the higher education place. And so is that the right way for us to go? Or is it not? So I think there's a lot of different options. We went through so many different conversations to say what really makes sense. We've got a $2.1 billion budget. most of which is through the appropriations. Just from operations, we've got an $8 million budget. If we were to hire an external executive search firm that is truly looking for an executive, and there are differences in recruiting firms, then we could spend $50,000 in doing that. Or we could not. So there's so many options out there, and because of the way we are set up as a commission, unfortunately I wasn't able to call each one of you and say, hey, I'd love your perspective on this so we can set something up. So we'd walk into this meeting with, this is exactly what we recommend. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about the process, but also give the team that I mentioned earlier, they did a phenomenal job of going through the due diligence of doing what's right to support the commission from a governance standpoint. So that's my perspective.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Scarlett. Anyone else?
I have some thoughts that I'm glad to share, and I
Love
was
to
dreaming
hear
when
it.
I wrote this, so forgive me if it goes astray, as Prince once said. Glad somebody caught that in the room anyway. I aged myself a little bit. You know, from my perspective, I believe we have a tremendous opportunity here. Your point about do we have an executive that we don't have an executive director profile, I think there needs to be some meat put on the bone there for us to really understand what we're looking for. And I guess I would suggest, you know, that the chairman, you know, form some type of subcommittee that can meet in short order to really think through that, along with guidance from looking at how other states have gone about their searches and figure out what they look for, and let's figure out what's unique to us. Number one, I appreciate all the work you put into that. I think you have nailed so much of the issues that we have and the avenues that we can pursue. I would be an advocate of advertising through SHEO and Chronicle Higher Education, et cetera, and seeing what we get in this subcommittee, being able to perhaps whittle down to a manageable number of people that we want to sit down with face-to-face or virtually, however, and get it down to one or two people to bring in here maybe finally. And let's do that in quick order. And in my mind, that could be done and a hire announced, you know, in 6 to 8 weeks, I believe. Now, you know, you raise a very good point about the people we probably might want in other states are not out looking potentially. But then again, we may have someone who looks at this state and thinks, you know, I've done what I can do here. Wow, I can go do something really great with the resource they have in Tennessee. But I also think we have a fantastic interim executive director. And I think there's going to be a lot of people in other states who look at this and think, yeah, I'm not even going to bother. You know, I'm not going to apply for that position. You know, I know how that's going to turn out. And so we may be faced with that. But I think for us to go through a formal interview process is good for us and further helps cement our next executive director for success both internally inside THEC and externally on Capitol Hill, and also outside among 6+ million Tennesseans to understand what Tennessee Higher Education Commission is really doing to help drive the conversation and help educational attainment in the state of Tennessee. And it's something you and I talked about just briefly before, but did not violate any laws, did not discuss anything we should have discussed, is that, you know, I think something that we take for granted sometimes is how this organization really needs to interface with the business community. I think a lot of times, and I think we have that capability in this room, but I think a lot of times we focus very internally inside the world of higher education and are not really reaching out to our stakeholders and the business communities to say, what are you getting for the tax dollars you're putting into higher education in Tennessee, and what does our output look like? Because our ultimate output is that student. The ultimate advertisement for a higher education certificate, degree, what have you, is that person and the job they do every day when they go to their employer. And we can't lose sight of that. So kind of bringing it back, where I would come down on is I would like for us to advertise through a couple of the places I've mentioned, and maybe even extend past that. Maybe thinking of business roundtable type groups. There may be somebody who is later in a career and decides, you know, I've built this fantastic career in business, And this would be a way for me to give back, and I'd like to pursue that. I don't know that that's what's going to happen, but I would rather us have too many options than not enough. And so I would ask the chairman to appoint a subcommittee, which I'm happy to serve on or stay as far away from as necessary, but that has governor's appointees, has legislative appointees, and then let's get our advertisement out there. Let's put a 2-week window on it to get people who want to submit their VCs to us. Let's get the subcommittee to take another week or so to individually go through those VCs, figure out who gets 5 stars, who doesn't, and they should try and reach some type of consensus about who they want to pursue, and see what kind of manageable number they can get that down to, and then come back to us with a recommendation that we want to pursue these candidates. And then let's further set, and then depending on that number, let's set up an interview process for those candidates that can be driven by subcommittee or driven by this full body. I'll leave it up to the chairman of this organization. And then I really believe we can really get down and dirty and have a pretty intensive interview process that allows us to announce a hire easily within 8 weeks. That's my belief, but that may be pie in the sky.
May I touch on time frame?
Sure.
I think in regular non-COVID times, 6 to 8 weeks is reasonable. I've spoken with several recruiters, as well as the Charter Commission. You're probably looking at about a 13-week time frame, just given the uneasiness of COVID. So just making sure that kind of sliding that in there. I think it's reasonable to expect that we could easily have someone, depending on how efficient we are and our approach, we could easily have someone enrolled by July 1, just from an outside perspective.
Absolutely.
I want to make sure my microphone is on. First of all, I want to thank Commissioner Scarlett for all the work that you did, and especially over the holidays and during a pandemic, and I appreciate that so much. I want to say a few things to clarify the record. We do have a succession plan. We have had a succession plan since, if you all go back in your notes, May 2019 at our commission meeting, Executive Director Krause named Dr. House as his deputy, and at that time said, she will be the person who stands in for me in all things when I need her help. And since that time, Mike has been grooming Emily, and he has taken her to meetings at the legislature. He has taken her to the campuses. She interfaces with all of those people on her own and has for several months now. So we did have a fine succession plan. And at that time, Mike had no intention of leaving. Let me also say that we have had executive directors of the Tennessee Higher Education Commission who came from higher education. President Arliss Roden in 1985 came from Tennessee Tech. I believe, Commissioner Wharton, you came on the commission shortly after he became our executive director, and that goes back a long time. Well,
there we go. Yeah, I was a student.
So we did go back to higher education at that time. I also want to say the cost of an executive search based upon a percentage of salary will be a minimum of $50,000, maybe $65,000. So in thinking about that, I called Mr. Cavender. I said, do we have this in the budget? And he said, well, no, not right now. You all, that's a whole position. That's maybe a position and a half. That's expensive. My problem with a search firm is our loss of control. We have other people making decisions, and they are controlling the time. I want to say something about THEC. It wasn't an accident that we were named the #1 state higher education executive organization in the country last year. It was a fact. If you all ever watch PBS NewsHour with Judy Woodruff, 2 nights ago, she was covering the pandemic's effect on higher education. And they were going across the country and seeing how universities and community colleges had scrambled and trying to make creative, innovative decisions to make them able to withstand this blow. the thing they were starting to do all over the country, we've been doing in Tennessee for 2 to 5 years. All the eyes of higher education in this country look at us. They've been watching us for a while. We are the template. We are the best practices. And in fact, Dr. Emily House 3 times has been approached by other states. Maine, Rhode Island, and Kentucky. She didn't go out looking for a job. They wanted her to be their Mike Krause. 2 of those times I wrote her recommendations because I have that much confidence in her. She turned because they're not doing it as well as we are here in Tennessee. I don't think we need to conduct a search. I think I will say, I did talk to some of our presidents. I said, what do you think of Dr. House? And the responses were resounding. This position, Executive Director of THEC, has to look in so many directions. They have us to think of, they have the legislature, they have the governor's office, they have the campuses, and they have the students. So I wanted to see what the presidents thought. Resounding support for Dr. House in this position. Total 100% confidence. And I called 2 presidents who had worked closely with her. Randy Boyd, president of UT, and Dr. Brian Nolan at ETSU, because I felt like they had the best understanding of her capabilities. I will ask you if you happen to see Jeremy Faison, Representative Jerry Faison's tweet this past week after he had a meeting with Dr. House, and he was singing her praises. So she has the legislative piece. The one thing we keep hearing is keep up the momentum. We have this Drive 55 projection that we all care greatly about, bought into this. Our state is doing so well. Keep up the. I say, we have our answer. All of higher education across the country is looking at us, as they have, because we do it right. And they know we have her as our deputy, or now our interim executive director. And they've got to be wondering, what are they doing in Tennessee? Commissioner Mumpower, I think your agency did it right, and they just took care of business. While everyone is looking at us right now, why are we sitting here twiddling our thumbs? That's my question.
Commissioner Coben. Commissioner Watson.
Thank you. I want to echo Pam's sentiments and observe that if we were individually tasked with writing the ideal resume for this position, I'd suggest to you, you can't ever get a better resume than Emily's. She has the educational requirements, a PhD from the University of Michigan, a Master's of Arts and Statistics, which is key to our business, Master's from Vanderbilt, Cornell. Educational credentials are probably unmatchable in this space. As to experience, she's been here for a long time, and I share Pam's views, and I've had conversations with Mike. I think he'd be surprised to find out that we didn't have a succession plan. She knows all the legislatures. She's been working with Mike with the legislators, and so she knows all the presidents of the colleges and universities, the TCATs, all of the players that are relevant to us, as Pam says, to maintaining the momentum. If we're number one with the SHIOs, why would we change management? I think the business people here would say, man, when you've got a great thing going, don't change your management. To Commissioner Scarlett's point about direction, the direction of this commission is up to us. To some extent, all commissions like this are bureaucracies, and we rubber stamp a lot of stuff. But we can put and should put, as I've written to y'all about some vision that I hope some of you share, that we need to change some directions. Well, we have the management team under Emily to change any direction and carry out any directive that we as a board of directors or commission can give. But we've got the players in place. We've got the momentum. Education, as you all know, higher education is critically challenged. But we have the players to meet that challenge. And it's up to us to provide the direction. So I share Pam's view that our answer to this is pretty obvious. We don't need to lose the momentum or the confidence of the staff or the quality of the work that has been done under Emily and Mike and their staff.
Thank you, Commissioner Watson. Commissioner Hassler.
Thank you. So I think as far as what's going on right now is we have an unprecedented time for students. And I kind of came into this decision, most of the thing about the students, because I mean, this commission is here for them, for us. But I think right now, you know, we have this survey that that we're going to go over after this vote. But I had asked for a list of all the open-ended questions on that survey, because I think that when you really read a student's thoughts, it really gives you some good insights. And right now, students are having, you know, a lot of problems. They're having mental health problems. They're having financial problems. They're having family problems. I don't think right now is the time for, you know, us to put students in limbo. They need strong leadership right now. They need a strong action plan, and we need to make sure that, you know, we need to make sure that someone like Dr. House, who I think has done a good job, is.
Thank you, Commissioner Hessler. Is there anyone on the phone that has any comments? I'm sorry, I didn't see Commissioner Moser, and then I'll go to the phone. Commissioner Moser.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I agree with Commissioner Copeland and Commissioner Watson. You know, the program we have is very good. I think it was my understanding, I've been on here a year and a half, 2 years. I did understand when I came on that we had a succession plan, and it was Dr. House. And, you know, the proof's kind of in the pudding. We've got a top program. I've employed a lot of people over the years, and if I had somebody to leave, and I had somebody in-house that could do the job, then that's what we did. The other part of the equation is if we do decide to employ Dr. House, and for some reason down the road she doesn't work out, we've always got the option of making another choice. And you know, she's a proven quantity, and I would be very supportive of giving her that position at this point.
Thank you, Commissioner Moser. On the phone.
Yes, ma'am. Hey, Dakashi, it's Evan.
Hey, Evan. Thank you.
Hey, I'm
You're
sorry.
ready. You're recognized.
Thank you, and I apologize because there's some of the comments I've not been able to hear fully due to the audio, but I think I've picked up most of it. I do want to say from my perspective, I agree wholeheartedly with Pam, with Frank, and with Jay, and with their comments and sentiments. We obviously, when Dr. House was promoted to Deputy Executive Director in May of 2019, and every conversation I've had as chairman with Mike since that time, and including that time when she was promoted, is the idea that Dr. House would be able to succeed him and go under this training and the tutelage that he's offered her, the grooming that she has been a part of for the last year and a half. And you know, I know we all recognize that the last quarterly meeting we adopted unanimously a resolution where we recognized our staff and praised them for being the single greatest agency in the country. And again, I won't belabor because I agree and I wholeheartedly adopt all the comments Pam and Frank and Jay have made. I'm not going to repeat those. I'll just echo my support for what they're saying. Thank you.
Anyone else on the phone?
This is Vernon. You know, I go back to what Commissioner Scarlett said in terms of C-level position being needed and desired. And you know, I look at what corporate America does. Corporate America creates a succession for its CEO. And if they don't think they have that internally, they go external. I think Mike Krause did an excellent job in identifying a successor or potential successor in Dr. House. He prepared her, groomed her, has helped her become the C-level candidate that we need for our organization, in addition to the fact that, as Pam has so eloquently put it, we are admired by 49 other states in this United States. And so the fact that we've got a top program, we've got someone who has been prepared and trained, developed for leadership of this organization, it just seems to me where we would be wasting time to go through a protracted process or a long process to find someone else. We can always find someone else. The question is, do we have a person in Dr. House who can lead us properly, continue the success that we have seen? And I believe we do. So I would agree with Pam, as she said, and with Evan and the others.
Thank you, Commissioner Stafford. Anyone else on the phone?
This is Nancy Dishner on the phone, and I must say I am extremely impressed by the wholehearted comments of our commission members and their support of Dr. House. It's gratifying to see that their support and what they see and her talent and her ability, and I certainly agree with that. I think that she is absolutely a star in the work that she has done for our commission and as a leader in education in the country. I would tell you that coming into this meeting, I very much am a processed person. Coming through, having been in a state system for most of my career, I have always believed in running the course with a process, ensuring that you've taken the time, very deliberate time, to make your decision. But what I'm hearing today from my fellow commission members is it seems to be the glowing support for moving forward in this direction. And so I certainly respect what I'm hearing at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner Dishner. Anyone else have any additional comments they'd like to make today? Yes, absolutely.
So it is wonderful that we have such a fantastic person in our interim position right now. I'm going to offer some thoughts, and I know I look around this room, we have a lot of people with executive experience who are used to hiring, used to making difficult decisions when things don't work out. And frankly, the hardest thing that I've ever have to do in my position is when I make a bad hire. And then I have to go back and figure out what I did wrong. And I look back a lot of times and thinking, I didn't take my time, I didn't ask the right questions, I didn't properly define expectations on their part or my part. And it's come up a few different times about succession planning. And I do believe Mike Krause had every belief that Dr. House has the ability to be the executive director of this organization. I want to point this out. We hired Mike Krause, but that Mike Krause doesn't have a vote on this board. As much as I love Mike Krause, and Mike Krause is a dear friend of mine, that's not Mike's decision to make. So I just want to point out that we still have an obligation to our stakeholders to make the absolute right decision and hold it up to the light and make sure that we do what's right by our stakeholders. And I would rather take a little extra time and have a process that everybody can look at and say, now I know how they got to where they are, instead of feeling like, well, of course that's what happened. That's what they naturally did. They put the number 2 person. And I've had people in my organization who I thought were ready, and I said, okay, they were the assistant director in that position, And I came back 3 months later and thought, wow, okay, I didn't hold that up to the light and look at it now. And I've had other times where I've said, you know what? I know I know in my heart what I'm going to do. And I went out and had a process. And after I went through that process, I looked at it and thought, wow, it either confirmed what I thought, or I thought, I didn't know that was even a possibility. I didn't even think about it from that angle. And I have thoroughly enjoyed watching Emily House and Dr. House grow in this organization. I consider you a friend, someone who I have immense respect for and have watched grow. We are not doing her any favors if we don't go through the process and make sure we make the absolutely right hire. At this point, as of today, if we decide to take a vote on this today, my vote will be to not hire somebody today. And it comes through with this reason. As much as I appreciate Dr. House, I have not given her the opportunity, honestly, to stand in front of this body and say, here is what my 3 and 5 and 10-year vision is for the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, what higher ed all look like in the state of Tennessee. Now, maybe she's laid it out, and I didn't hear it. And that's not her fault, by the way, because we have not, as of this point, put her in a position where we have said in an interview process, tell us what you think. Tell us what you would come do in 3 years, 5 years. Tell us where you're trying to take us. And that's not her fault. And really, frankly, it's not our body's fault because she hasn't been in that position to do that. And until recently, we weren't in a position where we had a vacancy where we really expected her to do it. And it would have been appropriate whenever we had Mike Krause in a position as our executive director to say, well, that's Mike's direction, but that's not mine. So I lay all that out there for us to do whatever we as a body want to do. But I just make real clear that if Dr. House winds up being the next executive director of this organization, she has my full-throated, wholehearted support. Okay? Unreservedly. But I just want to say, I think we are not doing our due diligence if we do not have some semblance of a search process beyond this room. Thanks.
Absolutely.
I would like to say to that, Secretary Hargett, that we did not hire Mike Krause. The governor hired Mike Krause, and we were very fortunate for that decision on his part. If it is not too soon, I'd like to make a motion.
Without objection, what would you like your motion to be, Commissioner Coben?
I move that we make Dr. Emily House our Executive Director for the Tennessee Higher Education Commission effective today.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Watson seconds. Without any further objection, please call the roll.
Commissioner Cope,
Aye.
Commissioner Dishner,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassler, Commissioner Coben,
Aye.
Commissioner Moser,
Aye.
Commissioner Scarlett,
Nay.
Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Watson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton,
Aye.
Chair Lady Witten,
Aye.
Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard,
Abstain.
Comptroller Mumpower.
No.
Chair Lady, you have 9 ayes, 3 nays, and 1 abstention.
Okay. Congratulations. I just want to say thank you to everyone for a great discussion about this. I think we are in a very fortunate position because we do have someone that is so talented in this role, but I would challenge all of us to think about for this next time, when that time comes around, that we are all comfortable with whatever that process is aligned to be. So hopefully what we will see moving forward is an outline for the succession plan, an outline for the commission to consider what we're going to do next, so that we don't have to have a full discussion like this. We can feel confident in what we're doing and know that before we get into this room, you know, that we feel good about where we are. And I'm like Commissioner Dishner in the sense of I'm a process kind of girl. I always think if you follow your process, then you really can't go wrong. In this particular instance, one could say we absolutely already had a process. We have a process with, you know, creating a succession plan and adhering to that succession plan. There's your process. So hopefully we will continue to do that moving forward. And so we have a couple of other items on the agenda. Hopefully everybody's good with rolling forward to the next item. Okay, so this is the COVID-19 student survey. And this next item is really for informational purposes only. The COVID student survey, I'll ask Dr. Gentile to introduce this work and our presenter. And I'm pretty excited to hear about this. So Dr. Gentile, you're recognized.
Madam Chairman, members of the Commission, Executive Director Emily House, congratulations, and I am very honored right now to be the first staff member to congratulate you. We are going to have an informational session right now to go over our survey that Dr. Jacob Kamer put together. He is one of our research and strategy analysts. He put this together and conducted this back in October and November of last year. Dr. Kamer, in December, he was working on his dissertation at this time. He finished up his PhD in December, and we are very fortunate to have him on our staff. Dr. Kamer brings to us, from his studies, both qualitative and quantitative analysis expertise, and he has definitely added to our position here in that case by allowing us to do more qualitative research. He has been in full communication with institutional research staff to better understand how they have surveyed students. By the way, he did this by surveying institutional researchers, and very diligent there, to better understand how they've been surveying and how we can, as an agency, survey students across the state to complement that work. Of note in the materials in front of you, that we will not go into detail on today unless you have questions regarding it, is a memorandum featuring the questions that you guys asked back at the November Commission meeting, our responses to those questions, and if the data is still unavailable, we laid out when we should be able to respond to those questions. As such, we do anticipate questions today, and if Dr. Kamer or myself cannot answer them, please know that watching along today are our other analysts from our research and strategy team who are taking down the questions so that we can then in turn ask the questions when able. So I'd like to introduce to you today Dr. Jacob Kamer.
Well, hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Jacob Kamer, and I'm a research analyst at the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, which I joined in January of last year. And today I'll be sharing with you some original research our team did to assess how COVID-19 affected Tennessee students and their educational plans. I've divided today's presentation into 5 main parts. I'll start by discussing the survey itself and the sorts of questions we asked on it. Then I'll discuss the sampling, how we identified students, how we surveyed them, and how many of those responded. Then I'll discuss, in summary, the findings as well as the implications of those findings. And then, at the close, I'd be happy to discuss any questions or thoughts you may have about the survey. Starting off with the survey instrument, it consisted of 22 items across 6 different topics. We first asked if COVID-19 had affected students in terms of housing situation, their personal income, or their family income. Then we collected some additional information on general enrollment characteristics, such as whether or not the student was enrolled in exclusively full-time and exclusively online coursework in the fall semester. From there, we also assessed the likelihood of students making changes to their educational plans because of COVID. We also assessed student concerns related to COVID, as well as their general satisfaction with how their institution responded to the COVID crisis. At the end of the survey, we asked a single open-ended question to try to ascertain what colleges could do to better serve students in this time. To develop this survey, we had it validated internally by THEC and THEC staff, and we also solicited some feedback from several institutional partners. In terms of sampling, we identified the students who were enrolled in fall 2020 using the 14-day census records provided by community colleges and universities. From those undergraduate students, we took those for which we had a valid email address on record and took a random stratified sample of 30,000 of them so that each institution would be proportionally represented. And to better explain what I just said, what we did, for example, if Chattanooga State represented 4% of the total undergraduate enrollment in fall 2020, we made sure Chattanooga State represented 4% of our sample of 30,000 students. From those 30,000 invitations, we received back over 1,700 complete responses, and after data cleaning, we used 1,686 of them in our analysis. In terms of who responded, they were predominantly female, white, in their senior year, were full-time enrolled, and the majority of them indicated that they were taking exclusively online or distance education courses in the fall. The table you see here shows how each sector of institution was represented both in our sample of 30,000 students as well as our analysis sample. For analysis, 42% of students were represented from the community colleges, 35% came from the LGI institutions, and 23% came from students within the University of Tennessee system. Now that you know a bit more about what we did and the students who responded, let's talk about what we learned as a part of this process. From the results, we saw that about 25% or a quarter of respondents indicated having their housing situation affected, but a far greater share of students indicated having personal income and family income affected, roughly 60% of respondents. Something also of note for this, despite some slight variations across all sectors and across these three items, responses or the proportion of responses was relatively consistent. Earlier in the survey, we had asked students whether or not they anticipated to meet graduation or degree completion requirements by the end of the fall semester. For those who did not anticipate to complete or to graduate, we also asked how COVID-19 had affected their educational plans. From this, we can quickly see that across all sectors, the likelihood of postponing graduation emerged as the greatest. For all respondents, we asked how concerned students were on a list of items because of COVID-19. We did this using a 5-point scale, with 1 being not concerned at all and 5 being very concerned. What you see here is the average score given for that response or that item, as well as the proportion of students who indicated they were either concerned or highly concerned about it. And what we can quickly take away from this is that 71% of students indicated concern with their personal well-being, and 68% expressed concern with taking full-time coursework. We also asked how satisfied students were with how their institution responded to the COVID-19 crisis pertaining to the precautions taken, such as limiting on-campus activities, the speed to respond, or how quickly the college reacted to a safety concern, and with information sharing, which would be how well the college kept the student informed during this process. For this, we also used a 5-point scale, 1 being highly dissatisfied, 5 being highly satisfied. In general, we can say they were mostly satisfied with how the institution responded, but of note, the precautions taken did have the lowest average response and had the smallest share of satisfied students. At the end of the survey, we asked a single open-ended question. Based on your situation, what could your college do to better support you? To this question, we received 803 valid responses. The word cloud you see here represents the top 20 most frequently occurring words across those student responses, with online classes being the most prominent. And I know in today's commission meeting materials, I've included a few examples of student comments, but I also have included a few here. Generally speaking, student comments broadly fell into 3 buckets, and in no particular order here. The first one being the need to improve their online and distance education experience. As one student said, "I feel that I am not getting everything I should be from my courses." As another student said, "Provide easier ways to access financial aid and ways to make the process faster," which represented the second bucket of responses, supplemental financial aid and support. The third bucket that emerged was better communication and transparency, as illustrated by another student. "I wish the local campus where I was attending would better inform us on what is going on." From all this information, we must ask the question, so what? From these findings, I would suggest 3 principal implications or takeaways. The first being that students are facing additional stressors outside of their education. We see this exemplified with 71% expressing concern with their personal well-being, and in the open comments, many students expressing concern both with their mental health and also with their ability to cope with online and distance education modalities. Second implication worth note is that institutions might expect some delays to time to degree, with roughly a third of all respondents indicating some likelihood that they might postpone their graduation, and with roughly 70% of students expressing concern with their ability to take full-time coursework. Institutions might see that it's going to take longer for students to finish their degree requirements. The implications of that alone would, of course, impact students, institutions, as well as the state. The third implication I'll share with you today would be that institutions might consider improving the student experiences in online education. And in their comments, students give a variety of suggestions on how they could do this, which would include, but it would certainly not be limited to, establishing clear course expectations up front, ensuring instructors are prepared to teach in an online environment, and to make sure the students have access to both online learning resources as well as those resources that are on campus. So also tangential to our so what question, I'll share with you a bit more about what we hope to do with the survey moving forward. Thus far, we've mainly shared the survey results internally by means of a memo, not dissimilar to what you've been shared with in the commission meeting materials today. But also following that memo, we provided a presentation for any interested staff members who wanted to learn a bit more about the survey and what we found out. After today, we would hope to start sharing those results more publicly and externally. We've also developed customized reports for each institution represented in our study. That way, on-campus decision makers can see both how their institution is represented in our study, but also what those students at that institution were saying to us. And third, because it is the nature of all research to beget even more research, we're considering what to do moving forward and what our interests and needs are related to survey research and COVID-19 as we move into the spring semester. And with that, I very much appreciate your attention, and I'd be happy to discuss any questions or thoughts you might have.
We'll go to Commissioner Watson first.
So you got a 5% response, roughly.
I can get you the more specific. Now, in terms of representation, it's
I'm
a
on.
very good question. The total survey sample that we used for analysis, that 1,686, would represent the total population with about a 99% confidence level and between a 3 to 4% margin of error. What that means is that the statistics we calculated based on the total sample should be within 3 to 4 percentage points of what the true population value would be 99% of the time. It differs a little bit if we start looking at specific subgroups. That margin of error gets bigger.
That was the next question. Did you guys say? Okay. So you think that this is representative of The entire student population?
If we look at the total, if we start breaking apart, let's say, and wanted to look specifically at the community colleges, that margin of error would probably get a bit bigger.
So, it sounds like you're going to follow up with some studies with those statistical studies. Would those include things like, what do you think about the college's online program? Are you getting what you want out of an online program? Is that going to defer your degree, questions like that? And of course, the value proposition, which is something we're all facing. Do you intend to branch out into those questions?
Right, I think we've learned quite a bit from this particular survey effort, and I don't think anything right now is fully set in stone as to what a future survey might look like. But I think those are all valid questions that we would consider. There might also be other questions we would think about that were highlighted in the student comments but never made it into an actual question on the survey. For example, with the mental health perspective. We didn't truly ask a mental health question apart from personal well-being. That might also be something worth asking. Something I also contribute to that too is that we really wanted this survey to complement any of the institutional survey efforts. And we're aware that many of our colleges and universities had their own intentions to both survey the students or had already done so by the time we were surveying. So we were hoping that what we have found out by means of our survey would complement what they were learning on campus too, rather than stand in the place of an institutional effort.
Commissioner Colden?
Excuse me. A question on your word cloud. The word semester is fairly large. Did you have students that were interested in having pods, shorter periods of time that within which a course would be offered? Because I wonder if we're all going to school virtually, wouldn't be easier to have, as Austin P. spoke of, 7 weeks instead of 15?
In recalling the student comments, I can't recall anyone that asked for that specifically. One thing I'll say about word clouds is that they can be very deceptive because they're just looking at how often did this word happen to pop up in this 60 pages of comments. And that semester came up quite a bit, mostly because them looking at the semester in general. Something I think tangential to your question though, several students expressed concern with having the semester shortened in general. For example, taking breaks out the semester so the semester could end early. I think that did, at least based on the student comments alone, might have had some adverse effects.
Mayor Wharton.
At the 10 through 12 level, I've read understand that trying to get educated virtually and start out that way. If you start out at the University of Phoenix, and that's what you're doing all the way through, but it turns a switch and you go from having a friendly gray-haired professor in front of the room. It's a difference talking in that little square thing. What are we going to do when this goes through the pipeline into the formula?
Well, I'll give.
So I can speak to that for a second, sir. So all of the feedback that we are receiving from this survey is going to be useful on a number of dimensions. And I wanted to comment earlier just to give so many kudos to Jacob and to Stephen and to the research team, because as I said to many of you all on the phone, and I say this as the person who used to lead the research team, we do not typically dabble in the qualitative, for better or for worse. And this has just been such important, robust information that's been collected that we can use for a number of purposes. As it relates to the formula, sir, we are reconvening this summer the Formula Review Committee, and so while this survey itself is not necessarily going to be the reason for a change to the formula, the discussions that will happen this summer, I'm sure this will help to inform much of that. And I would ask Dr. Gentile if there's anything else I should say about that. Okay.
Any additional questions? Commissioner Scarlett?
So much. This is fascinating information. Curious to know two things, and it might have been broken out, but I don't remember seeing it. But looking at adult learners specifically, and also, is there any data that is between those students who have graduated and those that are graduate from high school and moving into post-secondary? I ask that because there's so many kids that tend to drop off a cliff after high school, and it's a big opportunity to understand how things are affecting them. I'm guessing it probably is not in here, but from a perspective, I'd love to hear it.
Right, no, I appreciate the question, and I think the quick answer to that is you're right, it's not in here. But what I can say to both, we'll start with the adult learner piece first. Because we sourced so much of both the contact information, or identifying the students rather, as well as their demographics from the 14-day files that were provided by means of an ad hoc request last semester from the institutions, it did not have any sort of representation on age. So it didn't have the date of birth or anything in those files. So it would be a bit difficult for us to specifically identify, yes, this was an adult student. The caveat to that would be looking at what students said in that response to the one question. If they self-identified, I'm X number of years old, I have children I'm caring for, I've got work. So that would be a way of identifying them. And they did share responses as you might expect. A lot of these situational characteristics combined with everything else happening in education in the world really are not helping, to put it lightly. The second question, while we didn't have anything on this particular survey for that, for the students who would be entering into high school, we are looking into, in the coming weeks, administering our, I would consider it biennial, high school senior opinion survey. And that would target specifically that particular group of students, and we are hoping to add in additional questions specifically to COVID on that survey.
Anyone else? Commissioner Hassler.
Thank you. I just want to make a statement. So I had asked Dr. Kamer to send me a list of the open-ended questions, and I think he's done a fantastic job with explaining really what it is the students need right now in this difficult time. But from reading all these questions, the four main things that I saw was, a lot of students are having trouble with the in-person classes, and they're afraid that they've lost some of the educational quality. And I definitely think that's something that THEC should look into as far as how can we bridge that gap, because I was thinking about it, and a lot of we go through K through 12 and we learn in school the whole time, but that doesn't really transition for some people over to online. And the students that are good at learning online, they can also do the in-person learning as well. It's just kind of that one gap right there that isn't as easy. The next thing that I saw was the mental health issue, which a lot of students commented on. And like I stated earlier, a lot of that was for family issues that they were having, financial issues that they were having. It's really important that we are aware that this is something that's going on with our students right now, and it's something that I think we need to tackle head on. One thing I did see, and a lot of students are, I think, maybe upset with the online model. I think they're kind of upset with, they don't feel like they're getting everything that they're paying for. A lot of students had said things like they were worried that if they dropped out of school, that if they were to come back after COVID, post-COVID, that their scholarships would be lost. I think that's one thing that maybe we should look into is, it's for these students that feel like they can't continue through education right now, how are we going to make sure that they can jump back in it when everything is hopefully at some point back to normalcy? And the last thing that I saw was a lot of students commented on communication. And like I said, I think Dr. Kamer touched on pretty much all of this, and I think he did a fantastic job explaining it. But a lot of students had commented that the communication between them and their teachers, they think, is not what it was before. And so I think that we really need to look into how do we make sure that students are communicating correctly with their professors, how are they communicating correctly with their institutions, Do we have those processes in place that is going to allow them to have those communications effectively? So those are, I just want to make that statement that from what I've read, that's what I think are probably the 4 biggest issues. And I appreciate y'all doing the survey, and I think it means a lot. And hopefully we can take some of this data and turn it into some meaningful work. So.
Dr. House?
Dawson, Commissioner Hessler, thank you so much for that. I want to comment on just your middle 2 pieces there. Something that we heard when we were doing our roadshow, I mentioned the after-action reviews that Mitch and former Director Kraus and I did. We heard so much about student mental health. So I think that that is reflected in the survey, and that you picked up on that is critical. We heard about the differences in the reasons for which students on campus are seeking mental health treatment, the severity of those issues that is different from semesters past. So I think there's a lot that we can do at the state level to support those campuses. The point I made earlier about the ability of the person in this role to be a little bit more flexible about the financial aid parameters, I think speaks to your third point about making sure students don't feel like they have to go or they're going to lose their aid if they do go. There's always more conversation to have there, but that is something that, thanks to the General Assembly, the person in this chair has a little bit of authority to work to meet the students where they are without going completely crazy, obviously. Thank you for those comments.
Any additional questions? Well, thank you, Dr. Kamer.
Thank you.
So our last item is a discussion that I'm going to ask Commissioner Cope to lead in regards to the former THEC Executive Director, Mike Kraus.
Thank you. Everyone, if you can hear me okay, we had discussed at the last meeting that we had via Zoom or WebEx regarding a way to properly honor Mike Kraus's years of service to the commission. And so I wanted to make sure that this was a specific item on our agenda today so that we could give it the weighted discussion that I think it deserves. And so, frankly, I just want to, defer back to the chairman and open the floor up for thoughts and suggestions about what we think would be an appropriate and really good way to honor Mike.
Okay, well, with that, I will open up the floor to discussion. Commissioner Coben.
Madam Chairwoman, I had a discussion with Lou prior to our meeting, and he had a great idea, and I would ask him if he wouldn't mind coming up to the microphone and describing it, because he'll do such a better job than I will. Thank you.
Lou, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Note to self about talking to commissioners before THEC meetings. No, we were just talking about this agenda item, and Mike came in at a time when THEC was really kind of reimagined and looking at a new charge moving forward. And one of those is, of course, our mission statement, which is the relentless pursuit of getting post-secondary attainment for Tennesseans. And we have that in signage for THEC when you come onto our floor and into our offices, and have had for some time. And when we were talking, an appropriate recognition would be to have a smaller version of that commissioned with his name embossed and his time of service. So that was just the gist of our conversation.
Okay, sounds good to me. Any other thoughts, comments, statements?
Entertaining one.
Okay, I like it.
Somehow, as Dr. House travels the state, we found a way for them to name the Mike Kraus donut.
I love it.
So I think Mike is probably watching right now, and I'm sure he just fell out of his chair. That this is even an item on the agenda, and that it has moved to donuts. So I commend that recommendation, Commissioner Scarlett. I love that. I love that.
Anyone else? Okay, well, I'm sure that we are going to come up with something. We tend to always do, so we will look forward to getting that information done. And also, I think I need to figure out what consist of a Mike Cross donut, so I can go and get me one because I'd like one right now. If there's not any other business, I just want to say thank you all for being here today. Thank you for your passionate discussion. And as Lou just mentioned, just remembering our mission, reimagining and moving forward. And that's what we're going to continue to do. And I hope that, you know, as you all head home to your respective places, that you think about all the ways that we reimagine, move forward, and do better together. And as of that, our next THEC meeting will be on Thursday, May 20th, 2021. Secretary Hargett, yes, sir.
Madam Chair, I just want to say what a great job you did.
Thank you.
Navigating today, and we appreciate your leadership. And I would just say, because I know he's on the phone, Evan who? All right?
No, I'm going to say, Evan, come back. Well, thank you all so very much. And if there's no other further business, we stand adjourned. Thank you.